You're smart, driven, and ambitious. You've built a solid career. But when it comes to love, it feels like you're cursed. Wrong people. Repeating patterns. Emotional unavailability. Chaos or boredom. It's like something deep down is sabotaging every connection. Carl Jung would say, "You're not cursed. You're just being controlled by parts of your psyche you've never met." They have names, the anima and the animus. And they might be the reason you're failing in love, even when everything else in your life is working. Success in the outer world doesn't mean you've explored your inner world. In fact, many people who are high achievers in business or intellect often ignore the emotional and unconscious side of themselves. And Jung believed that when you avoid parts of your inner world, those parts will find their way into your relationships. That's when things start to go wrong. You're unconsciously projecting something unfinished inside of you onto the people you date. Carl Jung believed that we all carry within us two major inner archetypes. The anima, the feminine aspect of the male psyche. The animus, the masculine aspect of the female psyche. These are not gender roles. They're energetic, emotional, and symbolic forces. We all carry both, regardless of gender. But in Jung's view, the anima tends to dominate the unconscious of men, and the animus, the unconscious of women. Here's the issue. If you've never consciously connected with your anima or animus, they don't just disappear. They show up in your dreams, in your creative life, and, most dangerously, in your romantic relationships. You think you've met the one, but in reality, you've met a mirror for the part of yourself you haven't integrated. You'll fall in love with your own missing pieces, projected onto other people. Not the real them, the unconscious fantasy they represent. Let me give you some real-life examples. You meet a woman who feels like a muse, deeply emotional, intuitive, maybe even chaotic. She pulls you out of your structured, logical world. You feel alive. But a few months in, it all unravels. She's unpredictable or overly emotional. She triggers you emotionally, and you don't know why. That's the anima at work. She's not them, she's you. A part of your psyche longing to be known. Same with the animus. You fall for a man who's strong, charismatic, intelligent, maybe even a little mysterious. He has a mission, a direction, a kind of intensity that makes you feel safe or intrigued. But then he becomes emotionally unavailable, dismissive, critical and controlling. That's your animus, the inner masculine, distorted and projected outward. You don't fall in love with the real person. You fall in love with your own inner incompleteness. And when the fantasy collapses, so does the relationship. Why do we do this? Because the psyche wants to become whole. Your soul is trying to introduce you to the parts of yourself that you've ignored, rejected, or left undeveloped. It uses relationships to get your attention. But if you keep externalizing those parts, making someone else responsible for your emotional balance, you'll never actually heal. You'll just repeat the same story with a different face. You've probably heard about masculine and feminine energy. While modern language talks about flow, polarity, and energy alignment, Jung went deeper. He wasn't telling men to be more feminine or women to be more masculine. He was saying, get to know the opposite inside yourself, or it will sabotage your outer life. The point isn't to balance energies. The point is to become whole. Here are signs you're being ruled by your unconscious anima or animus. You feel trapped between craving closeness and fearing it. You fall too fast, then lose interest or feel betrayed. You attract people who mirror your own inner criticism. You chase intense attraction over emotional safety. You keep trying to fix your partner. You fear abandonment, but also fear being truly seen. You fall for people who feel mystical or magnetic, but leave you confused. You idealize your partners, then get disappointed. You're emotionally detached or overly emotional in love. You feel like you're repeating the same story again and again. If this sounds familiar, your unconscious is involved. And it's not trying to punish you. It's trying to show you what you've avoided inside yourself. These inner energies don't start out wounded. They become that way. They get shaped and often distorted by your early experiences. If you're a man, and you were taught that emotions make you weak, that sensitivity is shameful, and that love is something to control or conquer, what happens to your inner feminine? She hides. She twists. She becomes repressed or wild and chaotic because she was never allowed to grow in the light. So now you meet women who are overly emotional, unavailable, or full of fire and pain. You're not just dating them, you're facing your own disowned anima. You're smart, driven, and ambitious. You've built a solid career. But when it comes to love, it feels like you're cursed. Wrong people. Repeating patterns. Emotional unavailability. Chaos or boredom. It's like something deep down is sabotaging every connection. Carl Jung would say, "You're not cursed. You're just being controlled by parts of your psyche you've never met." Jung called them the anima and the animus. If you're a man, the anima is the unconscious feminine within you. If you're a woman, the animus is the unconscious masculine. We all have both. And here's the problem. If you haven't made peace with these parts inside yourself, you'll try to find them in someone else. You'll fall in love with your own missing pieces, projected onto other people. Not the real them, the unconscious fantasy they represent. Ever dated someone who felt like your soulmate after one deep conversation? They seemed mysterious, creative, magnetic. Then 3 months in, they ghost you. Or you realize you never really knew them at all. That's the anima at work. She's not them. She's you. A part of your psyche longing to be known. Same with the animus. You might chase men who seem powerful, ambitious, or deeply philosophical. But over time, they become critical, controlling, or emotionally cold. That's not always them. That's your inner animus, distorted and projected outward. Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But if you haven't transformed within, you'll keep attracting what needs healing, not what brings love. So what can you do? Start inner dialogues." Jung encouraged people to talk to their anima or animus in active imagination. Ask, what do you want from me? What am I afraid to see? Get to know your projections. When someone triggers strong attraction or repulsion, pause. Ask, what am I really seeing in them that lives inside me? Romantic failure isn't always about bad luck. Sometimes it's your soul trying to bring you back to yourself. When you unite your inner masculine and feminine, you stop looking for someone to complete you and finally meet someone who can meet you. If you're a woman and you grew up around men who were critical, absent, or controlling, what happens to your inner masculine? He becomes cold, harsh, or demanding. You may seek out men who dominate you, or you become so independent that you don't trust anyone to lead. Or you find yourself swinging between needing a man to lead you and resenting him when he does. And beneath that is a wounded animus calling out for healing. That's how the inner masculine and feminine get wounded. not just by what was said to you, but by what was missing. A boy with no nurturing father or emotionally attuned mother. A girl with no model of empowered, loving, masculine presence. We don't learn to meet these inner energies in ourselves, so we go searching for them in others, incomplete, unprepared, and full of longing. The result? We attract people who reflect not who we are, but what we're missing, and then we call it fate, when really it's a mirror. So, how do you stop projecting and start healing? Here's how Jung suggested we begin the process of integration. Active imagination. This is not just visualization, it's inner dialogue. Sit quietly. Imagine meeting your anima, if you're a man, or animus, if you're a woman. Let them speak. Ask, what do you need from me? Why do you keep showing up in my relationships? It might feel strange at first. Do it anyway. This is how you begin conscious contact with the unconscious. Recognize the projection. When someone triggers a powerful emotional reaction, especially attraction, pause. Ask, what part of me am I seeing in them? What are they representing for me? This breaks the spell. It doesn't kill the romance. It makes space for clarity. Develop the inner opposite. Men should cultivate emotional presence, intuition, and creativity. Women should develop discernment, inner authority, and purpose. Not to be more masculine or feminine, but to connect to the version of you that is complete within yourself. Dream work. Jung believed our anima and animus speak to us through dreams. Keep a dream journal. Notice symbols, figures, or repeated emotional themes. The anima often appears in men's dreams as a woman or lover. The animus might appear as a father, lover, or critic in women's dreams. Therapy. This work can be profound and disorienting. A trained therapist can help you navigate the internal terrain, especially when projections are strong or tied to childhood dynamics. When the anima or animus is integrated, you stop falling for your own reflection. You stop chasing highs that collapse. You see people as they are, not as placeholders for something you're missing. You become less reactive, more discerning, and more capable of choosing someone who meets you, not just excites you. Meet your anima, meet your animus, not to become someone new, but to become whole. And when that happens, love doesn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It feels like home.